what's happening here is the VA currently, as of June 2025, has had just a big rating schedule for mental health with a whole list of different signs and symptoms. And it was basically just kind of like the more signs and symptoms you have, the higher the rating is. The more difficult your general life is, and the more things that you exhibit on that list of signs and symptoms, the higher your rating would go. All the way up to 100%, where it has the verbiage of total, basically being totally incapacitated. It's not exactly this, totally incapacitated with regard to economic and social interactions is essentially what it's saying. So in other words, like you don't really work, you can't because you're totally impaired, and you don't really have any sort of social outlets at all because you're totally impaired. So it's important to take that into consideration as we look at this whole thing, because one of the changes that's happening to the rating schedule is the VA is removing that terminology. You no longer need to be totally impaired, totally impacted by your mental health condition with regard to social or economic ability to rate 100%. So effectively, they've made it easier to get to 100%. Now, the other thing that they've done is they've removed the 0% rating, which is, again, I mean, I don't really know. I think maybe I've seen one person that got a 0% mental health. I mean,
I have seen one. I have seen one.
Yeah, me too. Just one. I don't think it was two. I think it's only one that I've seen. So whatever, for whatever it's worth, 0 goes away. If you are that one person that has 0, after this change, you probably want to just file for an increase because you'll automatically get increased to the next minimum lowest if you don't go higher than that. Now, the other piece, and I'm gonna roll. I guess what I'll do, Clay, is I'm going to explain what the new kind of rating method is. Then I'm going to kick it to you to give yours, and then we'll jump back to me to kind of why I think it works good anyway. So what they're doing now is instead of having just one big glob of signs and symptoms, they're actually breaking it over 5 different kind of aspects of your life. They call them domains. So think of it like aspects of your life. How are you affected over here, over here, over here, over here, over here? So these 5 domains is what they're going to look at. And essentially, you get rated twice. You get rated how severe you are in these 5 domains. And then they'll take those 5 domains that you're rated in, and we'll explain it here in a minute. And then they're going to leverage that to figure out what you should be rated at for your compensation. Now, the 5 domains are cognition, interpersonal interactions and relationships, task management or task completion and life activities, navigating environments, and self-care. That's the 5 domains that they're looking at on a scale of, essentially it's 1 through 5, but they're starting at 0. So it's 0 through 4. 4 being totally impacted, severe problems in that specific domain, and 0, no problems at all. So how that works, we'll dive into in a minute. But right now, I want to kick it back to you, Clay, to just talk about how the VA is looking at that stuff. And you could dive into the 0 through 4 a little deeper if you want as well.
Yeah, so I like the domains and the bucket analogy, right? There's 5 buckets. The more full the buckets are, the higher you're rated, right? So if you're rated a 4 in one bucket, you are 100%. If you're rated 3 in 2 buckets, you're rated at 100%, and it kind of goes down from there. The issue I see with this, and it depends on perspective, okay? First off, I totally agree that the current criteria is a vomit of symptoms. If you looked at 38 CFR for mental health, it's just semicolon, symptom, comma, symptom, comma, symptom, comma, and it's just not readable. It's not a complete sentence. It's just, hey, boom, your life sucks, 100, 70, 50, 30, 10, and 0, right? That's essentially what it says. Whereas the new rating criteria is very organized. I think it's more objective, which it has good parts to it. And I think it's good and bad depending on who you are. And let me explain that real quick. So I think if you are an examiner a CMP examiner, a psychiatrist, you work for American Medical Experts and you're doing DBQs and nexus letters for veterans, it's good change, right? Because it's more organized. You no longer have to just check the box on the DBQs. It'll be through buckets, and you'll be able to really look at a veteran's life within that lens. That's good for examiners. I think for VA raters, it's also good for the same reason. You're not looking at just the DBQ mental health. I think section 5, whatever section it is that talks about symptoms, it just goes on and on and on. And so now you're not looking at these checked boxes and relying on which box the CMP examiner checked. You're actually able to see through the lens provided of the examiner, the VA raters don't do your exam, of saying, hey, this veteran rates severe in this bucket, and here's why. So it's more organized that way versus just kind of guessing, especially when a veteran is on the line of 70 and 50, right? You'll see your decision letter say veteran most closely associates with, and then you'll be awarded 50, knowing you have symptoms that do rate 70% criteria. So there's definitely a little subjectivity within that. So I think it's good for examiners. I think it's good for raters. Let me tell you why I think it's bad for veterans, okay? I think the bucket up to level 4, let's just call it 100%, where 100% is now, I think 100% on the new criteria, the bar has been raised, okay? Because when you look at veteran symptoms who are 70%, they're able to basically function. Not everyone, but a lot of veterans rated at 70% can function, okay? They have some type of relationship with their spouse, their parents, their children. They're able to get by in life. They definitely struggle. Don't get me wrong. It's definitely hard, but they're able to work full time. There's really the impact you would think a single 70% rating has is not as impactful to obtaining a job. And that's the crux of VA disability compensation, in case you're wondering. So in my opinion, I think the bar has been raised, which means those who are 70 or who would have a 70% would now be 50. Those who would be 50 would now be 30, so on and so forth. Just because you're running let me tell you this, Jason. When I was in the Marine Corps, the Marine Corps has a 3-mile PFT. It absolutely sucks. Okay. I don't care how many times you've ran 3 miles. If you're running, your life sucks. The Army has a 2-mile fitness test. I forgot what they call it. When I went to PSYOP school down at Bragg, we had to do the Army's fitness test, and it was easy peasy. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. We had a PT one morning where the Army dudes had to do our PT test, and they're used to running 2 miles. But man, you add that extra mile on, all of a sudden their 14, 15-minute 2 mile starts to turn into like a 23, 24, 25-minute 3 mile, which if you don't know in the Marine Corps, I would say that's bad. Like anything above a 21-minute 3 mile.
Oh yeah.
You're definitely like in your 30s, right? Like you've been in the fleet for some time. All of the young war dogs, the war fighters, they're definitely running sub 21 minutes. And then people who are cracked out are in that 18-minute range. But I want to bring up that analogy because although these Army dudes were fit and they met the standard, once the goalpost was changed to an extra mile, it changed everything. And that's how, as a veteran, that's why I think it's bad. Although the total occupational and social impairment has been lifted, I think how the new criteria defines severe, and more importantly, how a CMP examiner is going to define severe, I think that severe mark has been raised to where people who are 70% and are able to function, maybe they aren't severe according to the new criteria. I totally hope I'm wrong on that. I genuinely don't think so. I've spoken to many people, one being a board certified psychiatrist, and that's actually who changed my mind to begin with. And so I hope I'm wrong, but
I think you are, and I think he is too.
Okay, good.
There we go.
Please let me just drop that bomb, and then
Yeah.
let's hear some good news from
Hey,
Jason.
look,